For much of the world's youth, television is a main part of the culture, and many are losing the connection to their parents' traditions. In contrast, some young devotees of Krishna are becoming attracted to the ancient spiritual heritage of India and are bringing it into their lives.
We all have our connection with Krishna. And just like in this song, this young girl, she's explaining how Krishna is the sun and she is the lotus flower. And although this lotus flower is so dependent upon the sun to bloom, they are so far apart. But what does it matter? She's saying, Krishna, what does it matter? I have taken you into my heart. And that's how the devotee must think. Krishna's in their heart. Nothing else matters.
This was the dance performed daily in the temple of Lord Jagannath for thousands of years. The sacred temple dancers considered themselves married to the Lord, Sri Krishna. This dancer was one of the last to be trained as a Devadasi. In the early 1950s, dance in the temple ceased. Some believe that this tradition ended there, but throughout the world, devotees of Krishna are re-establishing this ancient art of devotional dance. The underlying principles of love and surrender to God are still very much alive in their hearts.
They were basically the servants of God. That's what Devadasi is. Deva is the Lord and Dasi is servant. So their whole life was dedicated to serving the god of the temple, which was either in South India, mostly Shiva, or Vishnu.
This is not only a story about dance or music, nor the history of a particular art form in India, but the tale of a culture founded upon the principles of love and devotion to God. These dancers, known as Devadasis, famous for their surrender and dedication, were immortalized on these temple walls.
They were married to the deity, and they danced for him every day, and that was their life.
Their dance tells the divine story of Krishna's life. Each movement illustrates his beautiful form and qualities. Many dancers today have technically mastered the different styles practiced by the Devadasis. These contemporary dancers study in pursuance of art and knowledge, yet the Devadasi danced solely as an act of devotion to God.
If you love somebody, then you will do anything for them. Similarly, because we love Krishna, Jagannath so much, and he becomes happy by seeing us dance, that's why we go and dance everywhere.
The story of how a dancer comes into his or her passion is always a fascinating one. Unlike most dancers, Vishnu Tattvadas began his study later on in life. He was a young missionary in Mumbai, India, when he felt his calling to dance. He feels deeply connected to the Devadasis.
I met the last two Devadasis who were living, like when I was in Orissa in 91, 92. They believed that when the deity of Lord Jagannath was installed in the temple, that time the celestial dancers and musicians, Gandharvas and Apsaras, they came and they danced for his pleasure. So that parampara is still going on, and the Devadasis are, their lineage.
Devadasis were always female and lived on the temple property with other women, considering them to be their mothers and sisters. Because the Devadasi danced only for the pleasure of the deity, they did not perform outside of the temple. Beyond the temple walls, male dancers known as Gotipuas maintained the spiritual tradition of storytelling through dance. Here, two young Gotipuas, dressed as girls, perform in a small village for the residents. Like the Devadasis, they also began their training at a very young age.
I always wanted to dance, but I didn't know which style to pick. And since I was always crazy about Lord Jagannath, I saw actually on TV, like an Italian dancer dancing Odissi, and there was this Jagannath. I was just carried away. It was so beautiful.
In '77, when I saw VG perform at Janmashtami Festival right here in LA, immediately when I walked up, first I heard the music, and the music drew me to the stage. And I heard the ankle bells and the slapping of the feet. And I went up to the stage, and immediately I said to my dad, "That's what I want to do." And he said, "Okay." And finally got together about 20 of the girls, and we all started taking dance lessons from her. And then slowly, everybody started to dwindle out from the class, but I stayed there. I loved it.
Leela Dasi has been studying the Bharatanatyam style of dance from performer and teacher Vijay Prakash since she was a young girl. Following the tradition of Indian dance, lessons often begin at a very early age and continue throughout the dancer's life.
I had a friend who would tell me sometimes I didn't want to go up and practice because I'd see my friends all talking or going to a movie or something. And this friend of mine, Gopal, he would say, "No." He would say, "You go and practice." So Krishna was telling me through him.
It's been nearly 20 years since she first began her study. Now she lives with her husband and 2 sons and teaches dance classes from her home.
What's a special little guy too? He danced with me when I was in last year for Janmashtami. Oh yeah, he was in my belly for Janmashtami in LA and Phoenix. He's gonna go to a performance this Saturday. So about 10 years ago, I got this incredible desire and urge to see a school so that children of the new generation could learn and teach them music and dancing and instruments. And I just see this school, this Vedic cultural arts school. I've even drawn plans up. I've written about it for the past now 10, 13, 14 years.
Leela has been traveling extensively for the past few years. She often performs with an organization called Festival of India, which presents Vedic arts and culture in major cities in the United States. In connection with the festival, she met other dancers with a similar spiritual mindset.
And so we brought Vishnu Tattva. He performed for 96, and then we wanted to increase it. And then I met Anapayani. So she came the next year. And so it was all 3 of us. Only 3, but better than 1.
Now there is no Devadasis in the temple. And as devotee, following in the footsteps of the Devadasis as best we can, we have this understanding that Krishna is wherever you bring him. So in this way, we're taking Krishna everywhere and making, with the altar on stage, then that becomes the temple. So we're dancing for Krishna everywhere.
Anapayani Dasi studies Bharatanatyam dance in Bangalore, India, and lives there for part of each year. During the summer, she takes time away from her dance training to tour with the Festival of India. In the summer of 1998, she performed in Washington, D.C. with Vishnu Tattvadas.
The Devadasis, when they began learning, they actually learned for 7 years before they were allowed to even perform in the temples. That's all they did was practice. The first time they got their bells, their geje, was after 7 years of training.
These dancers often go through many difficulties to be able to dance. They are following in the tradition of the Devadasis and consider the act of dance to be their seva, or service to God.
Krishna gives everyone talent in something that they do. And in order to become satisfied in this life, we have to dovetail that talent into Krishna's service. And I see that Krishna has given me this talent as a gift. And if I don't use it in his service, then I'll be throwing away this gift. And that would make Krishna unhappy and also make me unhappy. Because sometimes the daughter would voluntarily become a Devadasi, and they would marry the deity in the temple, and they would just devote themselves like a nun in a monastery. Just everything they did was to please Krishna. And their service of dancing and singing with instruments was part of the worship every day. And in this way, they developed relationships with Krishna.
Because you are doing it for the Lord, and the Lord, you are surrendering yourself, the Lord acts through your body, and He makes you dance.
This one time, all the clouds were, surrounding, and all this rain was coming down. And as soon as I went on stage, just this whole circle just came out, and the sun came shining right down on the stage.
A good dancer would not go through what we go through. Getting ready outside, even performing outside, bad sound system. But our reasoning behind it all is just so different.
Do you have to take pictures a lot? You do a lot of autographs and pictures?
Oh yeah, I do lots of photographs.
The attraction is not the beauty of it, the physical beauty of it, or the costumes, which is also attractive to the eye, but it's the heart, it's the soul.
Vrindarani Dasi is quite a bit younger than Leela and represents even a second generation of this Devadasi tradition in the West. In 1997, at the age of 16, she traveled to Poland along with a large group of devotional entertainers.
They really liked it because, it was bringing the best culture from the East, which is the spiritual aspect of the Eastern culture, to Poland, to the West. When Poland's I don't think they've ever seen anything like it before. It's really austere. You have to get changed sometimes on the bus, and you don't know where to get dressed, and no privacy, and you just get dressed out in the field, and you put on your makeup, and then you just go on stage and perform, and so.
Soon, Vrinda will be joining Anapayani in Bangalore to pursue her dance education. She will be leaving her parents and friends for 6 months. This is the longest she has ever been away from home.
My parents think it's great. My mom says, "Oh, just keep on going to India." They think it's great. They're really very supportive.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like the Devadasis, they took their talent and they completely devoted it to Krishna. In the same way, everyone has their talents and their service to do. And if everyone performs that service for Krishna to their utmost capacity, then we're all Devadasis. We're all servants of Krishna.
Committed devotees initiated in the Hare Krishna movement are given the spiritual surname of Das or Devadasi. These words indicate that they are servants of God. The dancers we interviewed described all members of ISKCON to be as praiseworthy as the Devadasis.
Wherever they are, just by chanting, dancing, and singing, they can please the Lord as well as become happy themselves. Not only on this birth, dancing, chanting, and singing. When they go back, they can again dance with Krishna.
Anything you do, huh?
Kokira was one of the last living Devadasis. As a young girl, she would spend her evenings singing for Lord Jagannath, wearing a cloth she received during her marriage ceremony to him. When the Devadasi tradition ended in Puri many years ago, her practice of singing for the Lord did not. After performing her private prayers, she would wrap herself in that same cloth and travel to the temple to perform her service.
Performing for the festival, for me, is the feeling of a Devadasi. What I would, if I was a Devadasi in the temple, performing for Lord Jagannath on the stage, I'm going to start crying, is if I could do that for my entire life, all the time, That's what I would do.